So I have one more story. And this one is, I got to be honest, it's kind of disturbing. Entertainment based, obviously. And I just, there was a reason why that people don't like him. So one of the, so we'll just use these two. So one of um, the biggest things out right now and has been going on is Max. It's been HBO Max. And so the reason I bring this up, so David Zaslav's been under a lot of heat. A lot of heat. Okay. For the past, I'd say 6 weeks. You're welcome, Meadow. Not a problem. Um, so the fact is that he has made a lot of unpopular decisions. Okay. Unpopular decisions. And the thing is that when he's made unpopular decisions, I mean, we're going, whether it's a TCM decision and cutting that and people haven't come in, whether it's, what they did with the content, whatever it is. Anyways, and by the way, a lot of it's deserved. Okay. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is Deadline reports that David Zaslav an article about David Zaslav was taken down by GQ after Warner Brothers Discovery raises questions. GQ magazine has removed an article about WBD CEO David Zaslav from its website after the company objected to the article. The unflattering piece about freelance film critic Jason Bailey appeared Monday. It cataloged a number of moves by Zaslav, particularly decisions at Warner Brothers Max and TCM, which had made him, quote, the most hated man in America, end quote. Bailey wrote that Zaslav is, quoted, only good at breaking things, end quote, comparing him to the businessman played by Richard Gere in Pretty Woman. The article then went through a round of edits before being removed from the site without explanation after the company complained and Bailey asked for his byline to be removed. One change removed the, quote, the most hated man line and replaced it with the face of a rocky and controversial new period in Hollywood. Archived versions of the original and revised article, which, by the way, I'm going to put the original article. I'm going to read you part of the original article because I want you guys to hear some of this stuff, has been circulated on social media and the Washington Post. Okay, so it's unusual for a publication of GQ's calendar to remove any article from circulation without offering an explanation to readers. It also can take months or even years for a piece to be taken down entirely, but things move far too quickly in this case. Castnote, owned GQ, said it has identified several errors in the piece made by Bailey, and the piece was prematurely published. A piece published by GQ on Monday was not properly edited before going live, the magazine said in a statement provided to Deadline. After revision, the writer of the piece asked to have their byline removed, at which point GQ decided to unpublish the piece in question. GQ regrets the editorial error that led to the article being published before it was ready. WBD's main point of contention was that it never contacted Bailey at any stage of the writing process, which is not the norm for corporate coverage in general. The freelance reporter made no attempt to reach out to WBD to fact-check the substance of the piece before publishing, a standard practice for any reputable news outlet, WBD said in the statement. As it is standard practice, we contacted the outlet and asked that numerous inaccuracies be corrected. In the process of doing so, the editors ultimately decided to pull the piece. CEOs by nature tend to be highly visible, but the latest episode extends a run in a particular bright spot for Zaslav, who ascended to a larger throne after shepherding the $43 billion merger of Discovery with Warner Brothers back in 2022. In overseeing assets like Warner Brothers Pictures and HBO, a big change from steering cable networks known for unscripted programmings. The exec has presided over some financial improvements, but his managerial approach hasn't always hit the mark. In the past 6 weeks alone, he elicited boos from students and striking WGA members while delivering a commencement speech at BU, Boston University, who raised eyebrows throwing a lavish party at Cannes in a time of cost-cutting labor unrest. Alarmed A-list filmmakers, including Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, with a significant round of staff cuts at the cable-cutting TCM. So that is the piece from Deadline. And here's what I'm going to do, because I think this is necessary. I'm going to read some of the actual article. This was the unedited article. And it needs to be, and by the way, I'm going to put a link in the description so you guys can read the whole thing. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, but I do want you to get an idea of exactly what was said. Okay? So basically, it goes on to tell in the first few paragraphs, it goes on to talk about his troubles, okay? And so he tried to, when he had the speech at BU and everything else, okay? It says that filmmakers were extremely upset, including Christopher Nolan. So this is a quote right out of the article. In his slight defense, there were considerable challenges awaiting the CEO of the new Warner Brothers Discovery conglomerate, whoever that may have been. Warner Brothers had, like most motion picture studios, struggled considerably with the pandemic. Their decision to simultaneously stream their entire 2021 theatrical slate on the HBO Max service upset other filmmakers, including those films who were impacted by it, and theatrical chains as well. One example, Christopher Nolan, whose enormously profitable relationship with WB dates all the way back to 2002. Of course, he ended up doing the Dark Knight series trilogy. He was so pissed off that he took his new film Oppenheimer to Universal out of frustration by the poor handling of the 2020 film Tenet. Okay? That's just one example. He says basically it goes on to talk about the things that are. So this is another thing. In retrospect, the right person for healing those wounds and reestablishing relationships with the filmmaker might not have been the guy best known for some of the reality shows like Dr. Pimple Popper and some other things. And to be fair, figures from the world reality TV has been seen with suspicion. So, but Zalsov himself did no favors and did little to blur that binary, but announcing the merger between HBO Max and Discovery, okay, in his quarterly earnings call, with a much derived infographic deeming HBO Max's scripted program as male skewed, appointment television, lean in, and female as comfort. So this is what he did. This is how he described. Now, by the way, I do use the term appointment television. I don't say appointment viewing, but appointment television, because I think it's we don't have that anymore. Okay, I mean, back in the 90s when you had things like Friends and ER and CSI, that was appointment television. Okay, Big Bang, whatever. But I'd never, ever, ever go so far as to say some of the things here. For example, male skewed. Okay, this, female skewed, unscripted, lean back, comfort viewing. You don't need to do that. This tells you how out of touch he is with things. And I think that's a serious problem. Anyways, I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, okay? Like I said, I'll leave the link in the description. Here's what I want to get at, though, okay? And here's where I come down. I think, and this is just me, when you start to And I don't know Bailey. I don't know this guy Bailey and how he operates and everything else. But he obviously knows he's a journalist. He knows what he's supposed to do. But when you have a company basically say, well, I don't like what you said about this, me, and this, and this. Okay, mind you, this was one of the same guys that touted The Flash as being one of the best superhero pictures of all time. Okay. He doesn't know film. He doesn't know television. He's a businessman. Okay. That's all he knows is business. He has dollar signs in his eyes all the time. So when he's cost cutting, like, whether it's TMC or, I mean, the piece went on to talk about Batgirl. It's one of his, $90 million he wrote off. And I mean, that in itself was brutal. Because here's the thing. You had a film, not only was it a brutal move, but here's the thing. You had, it was just one of those things where when you have somebody that is, I mean, look, everybody wanted to see this film, including myself, by the way. I'm not just saying that to say that. But that was one of the very first things he did. He slashed a $90 million film just for tax purposes. Think about that for a minute. This film has so much. First of all, everybody busted their ass on that film. Okay. Second of all, you had an African or Latino star in Leslie Grace, which would have been huge. The cultural impact, that would have almost been like Chadwick Boseman. Okay? Completely wiped it out. Then it was a comedy of errors after that, whether it was TCM, whether it was cutting 400 different movies and programs and everything else at once to make room for the new stuff, whether it's all of these other things and just saying the wrong things. Of course he's going to be the most hated man in America. What did you think? Then you have the strike going on. Then he goes to Cannes and decides, I'm going to throw myself a party. It's all about perception. How do you think that's going to look? People are fighting for their jobs and you're out there having a grand old time. I don't understand. So of course he's going to be, and to see what Nolan did, I totally agree with him. Okay, he had been working with Warner Brothers for 20 years, and he goes off and they do something stupid like that. Denis Villeneuve, okay, actually wrote an absolutely scathing op-ed in the New York Times, and you guys can go Google that if you want. And he ripped them a new one. Because at the time, they didn't know if they were going to make Dune 2. They didn't know. Of course, they made Dune 2, and we're all going to be looking forward to that in October and November. But it's like, come on. So this is why he takes Oppenheimer to Universal. Come on. So this is why he's the most hated man in the entertainment business right now. My point is this. When you think that you're powerful enough to get an article pulled because you don't have that thick of a skin, I'm sorry. Deal with it. Nobody has done any of this stuff except you. Okay? You don't want to give the writers any leeway. You're at Cannes throwing a party. Okay? Well, meanwhile, people are fighting for their jobs. You are cutting TCM, which has all of the classical movies on it. Okay? You axe a movie that is, even if it was bad, people wanted to see it. Just because of the revelation that would have been. They axe a $50 and $90 million movie for tax purposes. Leslie Grace was broken. And look, she's gonna work again. She was broken up about this. broken up. He doesn't care about anybody, anything. Okay? So that's my thing. When we get to a point where we're starting to censor things, that's my problem. You know? And for GQ to recuse themselves and say, look, we screwed up. Bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit on that. Because Bailey's smart enough to know that he has, they're going to contact him. What the hell do you think they're going to say? Oh, well, yeah, David's made some mistakes in the past. Of course not. Please. He's not going to admit to his guilt. He's going to blame the writers for not taking their medicine. He's going to blame, the Times, the Financial Times. He's going to make all these excuses. He doesn't care about film at all. This is going to be, within the 8, I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if by the end of 2024, we're not talking about this company being sold. That is an honest truth. Because he doesn't want to deal with the headaches. They're already $1 billion in debt. Okay? So many different factors and things here. But, I mean, whether it's the marketing like this, whether it's Batgirl, whether it's the WGA, he is, and look, he could turn it all around. But he doesn't want to. And that's the main difference. So, I have a problem with censorship. And as I said, I'll put the original article in there and you guys can read it. And you guys are bright enough to know that this is not on the journalists or GQ. This is on HBO Max. So, anyways, guys, what do you think about GQ actually pulling the article? Do you think that they should have pulled it? Do you think Bailey was wrong and he didn't go through all the right steps? Or do you think GQ should have said, here, take your medicine? We have freedom of speech. Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'm going to get back to everybody.